Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to the final Correspondent Week podcast of day one. I'm delighted to say our Crystal Palace correspondent, Ruaidhri McLaughlin-dowd, joins us. How are you, mate?
I'm good, James. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Should we get right into the ugly bit of the conversation straight away, mate? What is happening with this appeal over your Europa League ban with the Court of Arbitration of Sport?
I don't know. Neither does anyone else, to be honest. I don't think UEFA know. Palace certainly don't know. I think Palace are essentially just throwing absolutely everything at it and seeing, because I don't know how it works, obviously, but I think there are an unlimited number of like things that you can cite for appeal. So you can just appeal on as many grounds as possible, and if you succeed in one, the appeal is successful. So we're just throwing absolutely everything at it. I don't know why Leon and Nottingham Forest are also parties to the appeal, because our thing basically says we think you should allow us back in by kicking out Leon or Nottingham Forest, basically. But I
So they're
think,
going down two routes, basically.
yeah, and I think that's basically in either case, if we replace Leon, then we don't get Leon's place. So it wouldn't be Palace and Forest in there. Forest would still not be in there. Strasbourg will get
Correct.
Leon's place, and then we would go in with our original place. But yeah, it's on the 8th, and then we find out the result on the 11th. So the hearing's on the 8th. I think we will have submitted all the evidence already. And then because there are so many grounds, it's happening very late. Obviously, the whole thing is a bit of a farce because they moved the deadline to March 1st so that they could make it so that all of this stuff was done early before the draw and everything like that. And now it's taking place after the draw. So it's not ideal for everyone. And yeah, I don't really know what the grounds are on. I think we've been caught out because, right, so they have the 30% decisive influence threshold, and Eagle Football own 43% Palace, or they used to. And in addition to that, they did a capital raise in January and they provided 43% of the capital. So it's both the shareholding and the fact that they are contributing over 30% of the ongoing financing of the club. So that's where we fell foul of it, basically. But we basically are saying that there was no decisive influence because 25% voting share and influence implies decision making, doesn't it? So I don't know. It's one of those things where I have sympathy for UEFA because they have to come up with this criteria, but then the criteria that they come up with is kind of nonsense, and we know that there are loads of multi-club um, teams in there. And funnily enough, do you know where the final of the Conference League is this year?
Is it in Turkey?
No, that's where the final of the Europa League is.
Yeah.
That's in Besiktas Stadium. The final of the Conference League is in the Red Bull Arena in Leipzig, which is completely unrelated to the Red Bull Arena in Salzburg, of course.
Yeah, it feels. I think most neutrals would say you've been very harshly treated because you're not part of a multi-club model. And obviously, John Textor has now 0% ownership of you in any case ahead of this. It's obviously causing a bit of chaos because we're probably going to get a verdict, we think, what sort of the 11th of August. If you obviously stay in the Conference League, your first game in that is 10 days later. Have I got that right? No,
Ye-
3 days later.
Is it?
No,
Um,
10 days later. Sorry, 10 days later. Because you have to play the playoff games between game weeks one and three, don't you?
yeah. So it's either side of game week 2, I think.
So, I mean, it could throw, if you did get put back in, suddenly Forest have got those
Yeah.
games over that period as well.
Well, it's just funny the way that's fallen with the Premier League fixture being the two teams that could potentially have the games around either
Yeah,
side.
I would suggest there's probably going to be a bit of a needle atmosphere at Selhurst Park game week two.
I think they'll be up for it, and I think the players will be up for it as well. I think the players will be very annoyed because they will have felt like they earned it, and it's obviously not the players' fault that we're not in the Europa League. So
Is it fair to say you don't think you'll win the appeal?
I don't think so. And to be honest, I am okay with being in the Conference League.
Yeah, I was
Like,
going to ask.
yeah, I remember I thought back to it because after the FA Cup, when we did our FA Cup podcast, you said, "Would you rather be in the Conference League or the Europa League?" And I was saying, "Well, I'd obviously rather be in the Europa League." But that's like it's the first time Palace have been in Europe properly, and so you're like, "Oh, we can go and watch this team, we can go and watch that team, go to this stadium, this ground, and so on." But realistically, like the Conference League is much easier to win than the Europa League, and if it's any other team in the league, I'm looking at it thinking they should win that. Like if it was Bournemouth or Brentford or Brighton or Forest, even if it was still them in the Conference League, I'd be like, you've got a very good chance of winning that. But when it's your club, it's like, oh no, we'll lose to some Lithuanian team. We'll lose to a Faroese team in the playoffs. The other thing is with the Conference League, you've only got the 2 games guaranteed. So you've got to win the playoff to get into
Yeah.
it. So you only have 2 guaranteed games in Europe. So that's the downside of it. But I quite like the idea, whisper it under our breaths, but I quite like the idea of consecutive seasons of silverware and consecutive seasons of Europe. Sounds
Well,
nice.
that's it. It almost feels a little bit like you've kind of been put under a challenge, like a football manager challenge now. It's like, right, so you've been denied what you deserved, really. It feels like, certainly in terms of on-field success, in terms of being in Europa League. But go and win that Conference League and then you get in it next year.
Yeah, and I also think I said this in the other podcast. It's the way that this team responds to bad news. They respond very positively. So we had the goal disallowed against Villa and we went and scored, missed the penalty, went and scored. And it's like they respond very well to bad news. And I think there is like quite a lot of togetherness in that team. And it creates that kind of backs to the wall mentality among the fans as well. Because, we got in, well, as I said, we finished third in the first division in 91 and we weren't allowed in because UEFA let Liverpool in a year early. So we should have qualified then. Then in 2016, we got to the FA Cup final. But that was the first year where the runners up didn't get into Europe. And obviously, Aston Villa got in the year before, and then we didn't get in. So it's almost like we've been denied for a third time. So yeah, I think we'll be well up for it.
But either way, you do have some form of European football and it's quite exciting. But has it caused a little bit of havoc in terms of what you're trying to do in the transfer window? Because clearly, we've already kind of alluded to it. The Conference League, you should be able to kind of breeze through a little bit. In the Europa League itself, you would need a much thicker squad.
Yeah, I suppose it changes what you need. And the other element of that is if you can get through the league, there is also another kind of window before the knockout stages. So if you do get into the knockout stages, you can strengthen again in January. But yeah, we seem to have delayed absolutely everything and are concentrating primarily on um, this CAS appeal. And I think it's also that's kind of the focus of the decision making side of the club. Like Steve Parish is probably concentrating more on that than signing off deals, and the manager's getting annoyed. He said something before the Augsburg game. He said like, I wanted things done early," and he said that in March, February time. He was like, "I want things done early this summer because it really affected us. We've got 3 points from the first 8 games of the season last year, and after that, I think if you take out the first 8 games, we were seventh over the last 30 games. So we could have qualified for Europe through the league if we hadn't started so slowly because we had so many players away on international duty. So it looks like we're starting again. And it is Parish's kind of methodology to do things late in the window. But I don't think you get better deals late in the window anymore. You might get a couple of loans when people are left out of 25-man squads, but you don't really get that much better deals towards the end of the window these days.
Yeah, it depends if someone's desperate to sell or not, I
Yeah.
guess, in many circumstances. Then, as you're a forward-thinking football club now, if someone's desperate to sell, do you want it? I mean, for example, you're probably not going to be in the region of looking at someone like Garnacho, for example.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a tier probably below that. So are these the sort of players teams want to get rid of? Probably not in most cases. That would at least improve depth for your squad. You've got two new players in. Walter Benitez, who I assume is going to be number two, Rory, and is replacement for Texter Marinakis legend Matt Turner.
Yeah, he's been quite harshly done by actually because Leon
He
tried
has.
to sue them to not buy him, and then basically they were forced to buy him, and then they've immediately loaned him out. So I do feel sorry for him because he's a nice guy. He's just not very good at football. Um, yeah, so we got Benitez in from PSV Eindhoven. He was their goalkeeper that won the league with them. Um, so that seems good. And Borna Sosa is someone who was good historically, but he was a signing for Ajax that when Ajax had that really bad season, he was in the team and basically seems to be one of the people that they kind of held up as to blame. I don't think either of them will be necessarily starting in the first 11. I think they'll be kind of depth players. We needed a backup left back for a long time. It's nice to have someone who's good going forward. Goalkeeping wise, I think Benitez might be the European goalkeeper, whichever competition we're in. I think he'll primarily be in that. And then, yeah, it's good to have a backup goalkeeper because he didn't really get injured last season, but historically Henderson has had a bit of a mixed injury record.
It's only just replacing those. Sosa essentially is replacement for Chilwell now, I'm guessing.
Yeah, yeah, and he is probably cheaper in overall cost than 6 months of Chilwell. Even if you take into account the transfer fee, it's probably still cheaper to have Sosa than it was to have
Yeah,
Chilwell.
I mean, you don't get fees. Is it 3 million you bought Sosa for?
It might be 3 million all included. I think it's like 2 million.
You don't get fees like that anymore. That's almost if you're buying like a 17-year-old or something.
Yeah, or that's probably what you pay someone for a signing on fee when you get a free transfer anyway, isn't it? So
Yeah, cheap ads. So we're left with a situation where it's very much the same at the moment, but there is of course speculation with certain players potentially heading out the door. I guess first and foremost, of the kind of consistent 11 that we'd expect, who do you think might leave the club between now and the end of the month?
well, the only two we've really heard about is Guehi and Eze. And that's something we heard about back in February. I think there were sort of word on the street was that Glasner was kind of willing to let them go in order to get the money in to rebuild the squad in his image. So I would have thought, had we not had all these delays in the transfer window, and maybe if we got into the Europa League for certain back in May, we might well have seen those two go relatively early doors and then reinvesting and going full Glasner ball and buying players in his image, which is more kind of like physical direct sit in for certain passes and then have this kind of very active counter-attacking game. Um, so I don't know what will happen with those two. It looks more and more like Marc Guehi will stay. I think that Liverpool stuff seems to have quietened down. I think they're looking at it. Maybe at a certain point they were trying to get Canate to go to Real Madrid so they could get the cash in, and then they would go and get Guehi and maybe just have a bit more cash in through the door. But that seems to have quietened down. I think he'll probably stay and go on a free next summer, which is fine. I think.
Is it worth keeping him for the year?
I think so. I mean, it's one of those things. It's the opportunity cost. You get that cash in, and there are things you can do with it. But then players are there to win things ultimately. If you're looking at players as an asset in a portfolio, you want to sell with the year left because you get the cash. But then you would see it as well. What could you get for him? Let's say we got 35 million. That means that we're effectively paying 35 million for a year of Marc Guehi. But it's kind of he's we kept him last summer. We didn't sell him. Apparently, Newcastle were bidding 65, 70 million for him. And then he went and won the FA Cup with us and was like the captain on the pitch when we won the FA Cup. So that's like, for me, okay, the FA Cup is not worth any kind of like, you can't put a price on it to say, but I think that that is worth keeping Gay for a year. If it means you will go and win something. And it's probably the same with the Conference League or the Europa League. If we were in that, if we went and did something, it may well be worth keeping the player. So
I guess there's, hypotheticals here, but there's a danger though that because he's in the last year of his contract, you might end up with a situation, I don't know, let's say Liverpool in a desperate need for a centre back and come back in January and go, right, there's 20 and it destabilizes the end of your season. That has to be a little bit of a risk as well, right?
I don't think we've seen like him be someone who gets unsettled by that kind of thing with links away. Like he was linked. I mean, I suppose he was linked with Newcastle and then he scored an own goal against Newcastle when we played them and then we lost 5-0. But apart from that, he wasn't unsettled at all.
I mean, more
Um,
the team rather than him. It's in unsettling your team because then to replace that in January becomes tougher, right?
yeah, so you're locked in, don't you? Just say if we haven't sold him in September, we're keeping him for the whole 12 months.
Okay, fair enough. What's Eze's contract situation, mate? We keep hearing about this release clause, but it's complicated.
Yeah. So he's got 2 years left. So that's when they say you should try and sell because it's one of those things. If you don't sell him, then next year you've got to sell him because
Well,
then he'll
exactly
go
the
on for.
gay scenario now, right?
Yeah. So what? When someone's got 3 years left, you've got to sell him because then the next year you've got to sell him because season after that, you got to sell him because season after that, they're going for free. I don't know. It's one of those things like he's got release clause, which is apparently 60 plus eight. The plus eight isn't add-ons, although it's sometimes reported as add-ons. That 8 million is what goes to QPR, right? Because they've got like a
Okay.
profit, a percentage of profit or whatever going to them. So then 60 million, but it's very confusing because with the Elise situation, we didn't really know. Like Chelsea tried to trigger it and they couldn't work out how. And then Bayern just showed up and triggered it. So like they obviously found it quite easy to trigger. I don't know why it was difficult for Chelsea. Um, so it's something like the player has to come to the club and say, I want to leave, which I guess means that they don't get a loyalty bonus or something like that. So he has to come and then say, I would like to go to that club to like nominate the club. Then the club says, we're going to pay this fee. And that gets you through the door. And then you start negotiating the actual terms of the deal. I have no idea. So it's being reported that Arsenal are the main club that are connected with Eze. And that's like the link is 30 or 35 million up front. But then if the release clause is 68 million, I don't see how it's going to be 35 million up front. But we'll see.
There's
Ultimately,
no
it's
way you'd sell him for that.
Well, it'd be 35 million up front. Total cost would be 68 million. So it'd be like
Okay.
35, 25 plus 8 or something like that. I don't know that because it's often about cash, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that there's obviously the fee and then the cash like flow is different, and then how it's reported in amortization is different again. I saw that Trossard's been linked with Brentford today. I think from their perspective, that's more what they've got to do. They've got to shift out players in order to get him into the squad because they've got Martinelli and Trossard there. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. If he goes, he goes. If not, he's been absolutely on fire in preseason, as a like he has been incredible and doing all the like flicks and tricks and being a player who like he'll be in the England squad in the World Cup. He's been phenomenal. And I also, funnily enough, this is a strange thing to say as a Palace fan. I almost think it more suits him playing for a club like Arsenal, where compared to like when Wilf was linked with those big clubs, it's kind of Wilf is used to carrying the whole team on his shoulders, right? And that was what he wanted. So if he went to a big club, he wouldn't have that pressure, but that might not work for him because he almost wants that pressure. Whereas Eze, you saw where he scored the goal against Fulham, then he scored in the semi-final of the he scored the first goal against Villa and then he scored the winner in the final. He's a big game player, but he's also a moments player. Where throughout this season, January, February, if you're on Palace Twitter, people saying get him off. Sarr, he's doing nothing. He's doing nothing. Get him off. May as well put a kid on, and that kind of thing. But then he pops up in moments, and when you're playing for a team like an Arsenal or a City who are linked with him in the past, other players might be like you might have more of the ball but less opportunity to shine. So it's more about performing in little moments. So he can't necessarily carry the team on his own, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean they're different players, Eze and Zaha, right? I get what you're alluding to. What what do you think will happen with him over the next few weeks?
Um, I personally think he'll stay. I think that that release clause will expire. I think it expires on the first day of the Premier League season. There's a chance, I don't know how it's written, nobody knows how it's written, but there's a chance that it expires when we play the Community Shield because that's the first game of our season. So it could be the case that they they're sort of miss sequencing things. And like I said, I think Arsenal need to shift out players before they can afford to bring him in just for the squad space and everything. So I think he'll stay. But if he goes, I also think we'll immediately have a couple of players lined up. I mean, we're supposedly going to sign a right-sided centre back, a central midfielder, and an attacking player, regardless of whether anyone leaves. And then if someone leaves, we've obviously got to replace them. And then one of the things with losing players is that determines how much money you've got. So we wanted this to happen early in the window, so we could then get a better central midfield player or a better defender. You know,
Couple more, just a question on Adam Wharton. Any concern?
none whatsoever, really. Wharton's one.
Mateta?
Mateta's got 2 years left. I think most of the links away have been primarily to do with a contract. I think any club that looks at Mateta goes, yeah, he's been good for 2 seasons, but I do remember what he was like before then.
But
So,
we have to forget that, surely. Because
well,
I mean, as FPL managers, we have.
yeah, but he's only performed under one manager in his career, and he's 28. So,
Okay, so it could even be a little bit of a theory of the system you play, which is different to the majority of other clubs in the league, is perhaps suitable specifically, maybe.
yeah, yeah, what he gives us in that system. Like I said, like I don't think Nketiah is a bad player, but Nketiah doesn't seem to work particularly well in the system. So it might be the system suits the striker and the striker suits the system.
Okay. Any concern on the manager?
Well, he's got a year left. He's obviously very annoyed about what has happened with his um, with the transfer window. So yeah, there's a little bit of a concern where we've won the cup. If we did something in the Conference League, or even if we didn't to some extent, he might just go. Yeah, because I think he's got a career where he's won the Europa League, he's won the FA Cup at Palace, so he can easily say, "I've won something everywhere I've gone." And it's a question of where would he go? Well, I guess it would have to be a bigger club in the Premier League. I don't know if anyone else would be kind of attracted to bring him in. Um, but he could go back to Germany. I don't think he'd get the Bayern job. So Dortmund
Could
or
come up though. I mean, I'll give you a hypothetical one here. There's a big club in this country that's building towards a similar-ish system to yourself. And if they start the season very, very badly, might think, well, we've moved towards a back three manager here. I'm referring to Manchester United, of course.
yeah, but well, I mean that's obviously a very big club. But what's it done for anyone's career recently? Like
But
it's
if you get offered that job,
yeah,
doesn't get
yeah.
much bigger, mate.
It doesn't get bigger, and you can sort of see him wanting to do that, but like it's not been a good move for pretty much anyone's career. I mean, Moyes, it took him a long time to get back into for people to respect him again. Kind of the end of Van Gaal as a manager. So it would be tricky. I also don't know if they would want him, maybe because it is back foot football and we play on the counter attack. And then I suppose Man United did have had that historically, but does it translate to a top team? Is a bit of a question mark.
Yeah, I just think if United needed a fix to where they're heading and it's in mid-season, you're looking around. You
Yeah.
could see Glasner being a fit. That's all I'm suggesting here. By the way, I think Amrim will be fine at United as it goes. I guess probably more the question is, do you expect Glasner to be Palace manager for the long term? Heading in sort of, if he's got a year left on his contract, at some point you're going to sit down with each other, I presume, because I'm sure you want him to stay.
At the moment, I would assume that at the start of next season he won't be our manager anymore because of the way that the transfer window has gone. So I can completely see why he's a bit annoyed with the hierarchy at the club, obviously with the um, messing up the putting the shares in the blind trust thing and then the transfer window and the way it's gone. It's been a difficult few months since we won the FA Cup, so I'd kind of assume that he's not going to be our manager at the start of next season.
Okay, interesting. What'd you make of your fixtures at the start, mate?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I remember when they first came out, you were saying something like Opta said we had a very, very highly ranked fixture list, and you were a bit skeptical about that. I think if you take that Chelsea game out, it is quite good. And I think especially like it appears on paper that the fixtures swing for us in game week 10. My theory is they swing in game week 4. And if you can get someone to cover 6 and 9, the fixtures are actually very good from 4 till about where are we looking up to until 15? 4 till 15 is good for Palace. And I also was looking at it thinking we kind of, there are a couple of teams that we um, double up quite well with. So Forest is one, Tottenham's another for West Ham, and Man United, if you could ignore the first game. We've both got a difficult fixture in the first week, but I think Forest, Tottenham, and West Ham um, rotate quite well with Palace.
Okay. Noted. It's probably down to probably overlooking things like obviously Liverpool's in game week 6. If you're talking about a swing in game week 4, I realise it's at home. Are you looking at
Yeah.
that from a lens of more the attacking sense or the
Well,
fact that I mean, you give Liverpool two solid games last year, only conceded twice to them, for example?
Well, I was saying more if you can ignore those two fixtures, basically, if you can get someone in, because like West Ham and Forest have good games that week, so you can take out the Palace player. The other side of it is the defensive contributions, and we'll probably get onto that in terms of the pricing of the Palace players defensively coming up. Someone like Lacroix or Richards or Guehi are probably going to get decent defensive contributions that week. Possibly Munoz would as well because he completed was it he got the most tackles in the league last season or something like that? It's very, very high up.
Certainly of a fullback, without a doubt. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so defensive contributions will obviously be higher in those games. So you've got to think about from the defensive perspective, that changes the way you look at bad fixtures like Liverpool and Arsenal, really, for us.
Okay, that's interesting.
And also, the other
Go
element of that is the Liverpool home game, we lost 1-0, but we should have had a penalty. And we drew the Arsenal game away last season. So we didn't get battered in either game. It was only those two City and Newcastle away games back to back where we got battered last season.
You're not a team that I'd fancy to get battered by anybody at any time, mate, anymore. I mean, the Newcastle game, the 5-0 was just like, felt like a complete anomaly, mate.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. The City one was a little bit weird as well. But they happened back to back, so it was kind of clearly something went wrong with the system at that point.
Glasner didn't want to show his cards to Pep, did he? In the
No,
thing, he's part of what happened
no,
there.
lulled them into a false sense of security, didn't he?
Let's talk about the free attackers. I mean, one of the things Glasner's done really nicely for us, he's pretty much told us what his strongest team is, or at least we think 10 of the 11, and we'll talk all those players. I want to focus firstly on the front three. Let's assume Eze stays. Eze, Sarr, Mateta for FPL from the start. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts are if I was to pick a player that's kind of set and forget, it would be Eze because he underperformed massively last season. So I think given that, XG is a mean, isn't it? It's like an average. So if a player underperforms, chances are they're going to regress to the mean a little bit, and he might have some overperformance this year.
Unless you own Nicholas Jackson, in which case it never returns to the norm.
Yeah, or Darwin Nunez, or
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Well, I don't think he's either of those players. And he got quite unlucky last season. He had that free kick against Brentford that everyone probably remembers from game week one, where that should have stood and hit the crossbar against West Ham and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think Eze would be a set and forget. Sarr is a million cheaper. He had very good stats last season, I think. Eze's been very sharp preseason. Sarr, I think I've seen a little bit less from preseason, but that could just be the type of teams that you're coming up against. Sarr is, as I think we went through last season, perhaps someone that you pick when we've got more difficult fixtures because they'll be pushing higher up the pitch, and he is obviously a threat in behind. Mateta's on fire. Mateta scored, was it 3 goals and an assist against Mainz and Augsburg in those two games? The other thing is obviously everyone gets a chance to have a look at us against Liverpool in the Community Shield, so you'll have a good look at how we're going to perform against Premier League opposition on Sunday.
But we know what we're getting from you at the start, right? As it stands, until something changes from a transfer perspective, it's going to be very similar to the team that played in the cup final. I mean, just to repeat that team that played against Augsburg, you played two games against
Yeah.
them, and essentially it really was a first team and a second team. The first team, Henderson in goal, back three you'd expect, Lacroix, Guehi, Richards, Mitchell and Munoz. It was Wharton and Kamada in midfield, and then obviously the front three forwards. It's almost telling us. And the only one we're debating there really is Kamada first choice, I guess, is the only one.
Yeah, I like having a right foot and left foot partnership in central midfield, but Hughes I think is probably a little bit better than Kamada, but Kamada was brilliant at the end of last season. So yeah, it's the team that finished the team that started the FA Cup final will probably be the team that plays. The other element of that is when we go back to the fixtures. I mean, I mentioned if you take the Chelsea game out, maybe it's okay, but Chelsea have had a weird preseason. I'm sure you discuss that with Gary later
Well,
on. They
no,
had
no pre-season.
Yeah, well, next weekend they've got what we did against Augsburg, where they've got two games back to back in one day. But what kind of shape will they be in? So, yeah, I mean, maybe that's even a fixture to target, but perhaps.
We've got nothing to go on historically to know really how Chelsea will or won't start this season. Yeah, certainly we'll discuss with Gary later in the week. I guess I think to most people, you look at Eze a million more than Sarr. The instinct is to look at Sarr, I think. I'd certainly take on board what you're saying about the data, but I think that's the instinct. Plus, also in people's minds, you could start with Eze and he might disappear somewhere towards the end of the window and might not go straight in another team. Would that play on your mind at all?
Yeah, I think I mean, if he goes to Arsenal, he probably won't get in their team immediately, I would think, because there's some debate about what position he's going to play at Arsenal, and I think they'd have to work out the system as much as anything else. I personally think he'll stay, so no, it's not
Yeah.
really in my thought process, but. Look, if he goes, then you get an Arsenal attacking midfielder, and it's not the end of the world, is it?
No, there's a lot of options in the 6.5 midfielder bracket that are quite interesting. How do you feel about Sarr versus others in there, the likes of Kudos and Dye?
Well, that probably comes down to fixtures. Sarr doesn't have set pieces. Kudus was taking corners. Is he still taking corners for you?
Has been, yeah. A lot of in
Yeah,
swingers, not all.
yeah, and under your manager, set pieces would probably be fairly important. Uh, NDI, I mean, it's difficult to know with Everton because they've got so many players to play. I mean, I think sorry, so many players to bring in. They need
Yeah.
to sign like three or four players, don't they? So I think with us, our strength is that you know who's going to play for us. Like you know what our starting 11 is going to be. Whereas some of those teams, I mean, we're talking now after the Madison injury, but we don't know how bad it is. So we don't know how that will affect Tottenham if you're thinking about Kudus. So it might make him more central even. But we know,
No, not from what I saw at the end of the game today. No, it seems a real intent to play Kudos from the right. That would be my instinct, by the way, if Tottenham were to do business. Just on that, we were speaking about Eze and Tottenham off camera before we started. And I said to you, I don't think Tottenham are interested.
yeah, but if basically every single
I don't mind if we are, by the way.
yeah, I know, but basically everything I saw on Twitter immediately after the Madison injury was we now need to go and get Eze because there is an awareness that you had 60 million down for someone and there's the fee is fairly similar and it's a release clause and everything like that. I think maybe you're right
Not
that
sure we want to get involved in the release clause nonsense again.
no, well, I'm not sure we'd sue, but
No, you probably wouldn't.
I'm not sure you'd worry as much about Steve Parish taking you to court. But yeah, I think you know what you're going to get. Eze, I mean, you're saying you probably don't want him, or Tottenham probably don't want him. I think it's possibly the other way around, where it's like people are talking to him and he's basically got his heart set on Arsenal,
Yeah,
and
could well be.
because he started at Arsenal, and I think for him that's kind of a circular thing where he started there and then he ends up there, and then that's kind of like all the hard work he would have gone through when he got released as like an 18-year-old or something like that. It's kind of like life coming full circle for him because I don't think he necessarily wants to leave Palace. I don't think he like dislikes being at Palace, or we're not a big enough
No,
club.
I think he look, if Arsenal and Crystal Palace strike a deal, Eze will go. But I don't think he's going to kick up a fuss.
Yeah, because what we heard with Chelsea were interested in him as well earlier on in the season, and they found out that the wage demands were quite high. But I don't know if they're different wage demands for Arsenal, or he'd have to be compensated more to go and play for someone else, maybe.
Maybe. What about Mateta versus your Woods, João Pedro's, Solankis?
Well, Wood's got the fixtures is the thing, but he also is the opposite of Eze in that he massively overperformed last season. Joao Pedro is flavour of the week, I think, for everyone, um, because of the Club World Cup and because he was very impressive and because people like what he did at Brighton as well, I guess. Um, so uh, Mateta's on absolute fire, and we have shown that we can score against anyone really.
Yeah.
So Mateta's been on fire. I think last season after he had his ear sliced open, he was less effective, but he's playing without the head uh,
God.
support, yeah, ear protection, whatever. He's playing without that now, so maybe he'll be back. And then with someone like Vissa, you don't know where this is going to be. Strand Larson, Wolves, it's kind of mixed opening fixtures. So, I mean, strikers are difficult this season. They're very difficult because you're saying Solanke's he's not even played yet.
Was injured. At the time of recording is Sunday. Again, didn't play against Newcastle.
Bowen, it's like West Ham have a good first fixture, but then it's after that it's a little bit difficult, isn't it? With Chelsea, Forest, Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, strategy will certainly play a part here. Do you think you'll start with any of those Palace three?
I have got two in my team at the moment.
They are.
I
I've just from the attacking ones.
I've no, so I've got two Palace players overall. I've only got Mateta in my team. And
So
then I've got
Mateta's the one you're going for at the moment.
yeah.
Should we read too much into pre-season form?
I mean, I would say so because we've looked quite good. If we had looked quite bad,
I've
then
not
maybe.
watched yet, so I trust you, mate.
Yeah, we have looked quite good. And the other element with the whole preseason form thing is it's not like we've had an influx of players and we've changed system. We finished last season strongly. We started last season very badly, but we had so many players away on international duty. I feel like the fact that the system, everyone's comfortable with the system, all the players are comfortable with each other. No one's been away on international duty. I feel like we are kind of set up to start the season well, even if the fixtures are perhaps a little bit mixed. So.
Is there also with Sarr versus the other two, maybe more so? Once you start playing European games, if people are thinking a bit longer term, assuming they all stay, Eze and Mateta would be unlikely to be rested for a Premier League game. That's how it feels. But if they were to change one, maybe it's Sarr.
Well, we're supposed to be getting another attacking player in. I suppose it depends on the type of player that attacking player is. Because Sarr obviously starts on the right, but he has the ability to play off the left as well. Whereas I haven't seen Eze play right attacking midfield before. Mateta's obviously not going to drop into one of the 10 positions. So Sarr perhaps maybe is more versatile, and as a result, if they want to rest someone, he also they took Eze off, and Sarr often played 90 minutes last season after they subbed Eze. So Sarr often played 90 minutes. So, but yeah, there is a kind of feeling that Sarr of those front three is perhaps the least. Um,
Established.
yeah, I guess so. I mean, the player that we've been linked with specifically is a right attacking midfield player. So,
Okay.
but then
Noted.
Sarr can play off the left, like he's right-footed, and you
He
could stick
can.
him on. Yeah, yeah. So.
Talk to me about these three centre backs. I've said on other podcasts, I think FPL have done a brilliant job with this in terms of the pricing. Because I think most of the naked eye would go, why Lacroix 0.5 more? But that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, well, with I mean, the defensive prices obviously reflect the defensive contributions thing that they're doing now, and he has apparently got quite a lot higher clearances and blocks than everyone else. But Richards also kind of goes under the radar a little bit as well, I think.
I, yes, he does. But I guess the concern with Richards now be if Gay stays and you're going to go buy another centre back. Richards
Yeah,
is the first one, maybe for the chop here, isn't he?
possibly, but he starts as a right-sided centre back. He has played left-sided centre back before as well. I think when he was at Hoffenheim, he often played left-sided centre back as well. So if we're thinking about Europe, if they were like, we have to rest Guehi because we've got a difficult game midweek, then Richards could just go over to the left. Lacroix of the three, I think, is the most secure because central centre back. They played Lerma there in pre-season. It didn't really work. I think Guehi's the only one who I would actually trust to be the central centre back. But we tried that at the start of last season, and that didn't work very well either.
Yeah, your
Guehi
results improve dramatically once you move Lacroix.
Yeah, so Lacroix is possibly the most important one, but does that mean that? But because we don't know. I mean, you said this on the again the FA Cup pod we did. He doesn't rotate very much for the cup games. He didn't for the League Cup and the FA Cup. So with Europe, what's he going to do? Well, he's going to have to rotate. Lacroix is the one that I think is most certain to. He's the most important one, and I don't know whether that means that he will then go. We need him to play the league games, or
I guess it's also worth saying, reflect quite interesting. Just listening to you talk, and you even in the League Cup, you picked quite strong sides.
yeah.
So I guess there's a chance, particularly if you did end up in Europa League, that you'd sack off the League Cup this year.
Probably, yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
But
Are
we
you?
obviously first time we're not in the second round of the League Cup, James, because we're in Europe.
No, that's true. So that's one less. That's one less game to worry about. Very true. I'm pleased that you are skipping it, mate. Um, Gay 4.5, I guess it's a little bit similar to Eze in the sense of all little bit of a fear that if he did go to, say, Liverpool, would he go straight in the team? That's a little bit of a concern. The ownership, very understandably, is there for him at 4.5. Richards, I'd be concerned about. If you're saying you want another centre back, if it's first choice, that's the one that's coming out of the team. I'd be pretty confident. So I guess the question here would be, is Lacroix just versus Gay worth zero point 0.5 more?
If we know that the window is closed, and I think he will stay because that Liverpool stuff seems to have calmed down. I would say yeah, he is because of the defensive contributions. I mean, we don't know yet how that's going to affect everything. Um, because they've changed the prices because they obviously think it is going to affect things quite a lot. So that kind of 2 point threshold thing. I would say for me, he is, but I understand if you're looking at the Palace asset as someone that you rotate in and out, maybe going with the 4.5 is better. So it really does depend on strategy. I think if you are going with Lacroix, you kind of have to start him. He has to be someone who you think you'll play most weeks. But then when we have difficult fixtures, he will probably have higher defensive contributions, or there's a good chance that he'll get
Yeah.
those 2 points. So I think you're right in terms of the pricing. Even if you take Munoz into account, there's almost a tier, isn't there, where you've got Munoz, Mateta, Guehi, and Guehi and Richards at the same level. Richards gets defensive contributions. Guehi's certain. Lacroix gets defensive contributions and is certain. And then Munoz is certain, gets some defensive contributions and attacking returns on top of that. So yeah, they've tiered that quite well.
So Gay fine as a 4.5 pick. If the money's spare, Lacroix is worth paying the zero point 0.5 more. So then the next question is Munoz worth zero point 0.5 more on Lacroix?
Yeah, it depends on the strategy of what you're doing again. But it's like, I think because it's the attacking returns, if you're bringing in a Palace defender, let's say you wildcard and you're bringing in a Palace defender because we've got good fixtures around the time of a fixture swing, then it's worth going for Munoz over Lacroix. If you're like, I want to, people talk about wildcard 13. Palace have got kind of, we discussed the first three are a little bit tricky, and then it gets okay with some difficult fixtures in there. You would maybe then go set and forget to 13 if you want one. It's probably Lacroix because he will get defensive contributions in the more difficult games. So I guess it depends on when you're wildcarding.
Yeah, I think they've done right going when I was 5.5. I felt that even before we obviously knew about the changes. I felt, yeah, if he'd come in at 5 without the changes, he'd have been going in so many teams. The thing with Munoz as well, it will be a psychological change for FPL managers in terms of, oh, I might play Lacroix away to Chelsea, for example. Munoz, you wouldn't want to bench in many games. You could maybe from like Arsenal away, Liverpool away, these sort of things. Otherwise, just play him. His engine is unbelievable, Rory.
Yeah, I think he played the most minutes for us last season, and I went to the Wolves game after the FA Cup final. So FA Cup final was on the Saturday. I think the Wolves game was Tuesday night.
Tuesday.
It was just going absolutely mental, and you're just like, you have probably just spent 2 days, well, at least one day getting drunk. You've probably not slept. You've had adrenaline coursing through your body. You've been lifting a cup, and then you're still just like one of the assists he got in that game. He jumped about 2 meters in the air and like volleyed it to someone. It's just like you do worry watching him sometimes that he is putting himself in danger by running so much. Like he could have a hamstring injury at some point. But yeah, he covers so much ground. He's an absolute machine.
He's definitely worth zero point 0.5 over Mitchell, I'd guess.
Yeah, Mitchell is not really going to contribute a great deal going forward. He's one who, in the underlying stats, probably does okay, but when he gets into those positions, even in pre-season, Eze will beat three players and then Mitchell will get the ball and dribble out of play. That's that kind of situation. He is less nailed this season because we've got Sosa there. Sosa's got very good delivery. If Mitchell got injured, I'd potentially say Sosa's, got a little bit of the Alonso's about him in terms of his delivery, and he would
Okay.
probably take set pieces. That's something to keep an eye on, actually. Um, while we were talking about Eze, if Eze did go, who's on set pieces? It's the thing. Mateta's nailed on penalties. I think Wharton. I think Wharton would take corners, a lot of corners.
Okay.
Hughes takes corners as well, so if he's on, he might take them. But I think Wharton and Kamada would probably take corners each.
So we're almost saying Mitchell's the only one we definitively rule out from, let's call it back five. Dean Henderson should be considered as well, shouldn't he?
Yeah, he's got a penalty save in him as well. I think we know that now.
I think he had a really good, particularly second half of the season for you, mate. And you know I'm not his biggest fan, but I think it was great.
Yeah, and he's a bit of a cult hero among the fans now. He is nailed. Benitez isn't really that much of a threat in the league. Seems to have put his injuries behind him, and yeah, our defense is solid. So yeah, I mean, you could get Henderson in if you're on wild carding around 10. Maybe that's what you do. I would, yeah, I can definitely see getting Henderson in.
How do you feel about Henderson versus Lacroix?
I would say probably get Lacroix. Lacroix also goes under the radar in that he is probably the target for a lot of our set pieces. So he does
He
have.
was in the top 10 for underperformers of XG last year.
I think we're Palace players most of that top 10, to be perfectly honest, looking at the stats. So yeah, we have Eze, obviously, who took the most shots without scoring until about mid-November. And then Lacroix. But yeah, Lacroix is good from set pieces. He often does get in there. I'm trying to remember when he scored a header. Was it against City at home or something? But yeah, he's often a target from
Yes, I
set
think you're
pieces.
right. I mean, it's worth saying it's relative. Lacroix scored once in the league last year off of a XG of, I think, of about 3.5. So it's obviously not high.
Yeah, but still, I mean, 3.5 if he performs.
Well, if he goes the other way and gets six this year, he's going to be a great asset, isn't he?
Yeah, everyone will be getting him in. Yeah, I think he is often a target from set pieces. Richards is the other one. Don't know if we signed up because obviously Gay is a little bit smaller. So I would say Lacroix over Henderson on
Okay.
that basis. But then goalkeepers can be a bit tricky. I think most people probably go for Sells if they're going for a five.
I'd tell you what I would be. I'd just say I'd be uncomfortable going Henderson and Benitez because I know that'd be a temptation. Benitez is four, and obviously you can get the two, and it obviously covers you for every game. I'd just be too shit scared of blocking myself for only being able to have one other Palace spot,
Ye-
remarkably.
Well, so would I, but pe for people who aren't fans, I mean, maybe. But yeah, you wouldn't be able to get as a Sarr Guehi if we did start exploding in that.
But
Because I think we are supposed to, on the planners and everything, people are suggesting we'll do well in that back to back. Was it? You've got Sunderland followed by another decent game, Sunderland West Ham. I think we are projected to do quite well in attacking terms across those two games.
there's some teams you look at and you go, there's three or four interesting assets. You've got more. The whole of that front three could be interesting. Four of the back five could be interesting. Goalkeeper's interesting. You're throwing in maybe even Wharton at five when it's a struggle to maybe have an enabler. Yeah, I would not want to go the Henderson Benitez combination. I just wouldn't want to waste the spot. I don't mind going Henderson. I just would go with a different 4.0 keeper or even sounds like lots are considering going a five and a 4.5. I don't know if that's a lot with maybe bench boost game week one in mind, maybe.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
talk
but
about Wharton then. So, I mean, is this an option at five?
yeah, I was trying to I think he is because he should get a lot more assists than he does the amount that he plays the ball forward. I think he makes a lot of key passes into the final third and he should but perhaps get a few more assists than he does. He's on, I think, 2.8 tackles per 90. He's quite high for ball recoveries. So for the new C bit, I think he's relatively high. Lerma gets more per 90 than him, but I think Hughes and Wharton, given that it's Wharton and Kamada who are starting, I think Wharton will hoover up more of that than Kamada will to begin with. So of the two, and then if Leze does go, I think he'll probably take the in-swinging set pieces with his from the right hand side with his left foot, and then might be on some free kicks as well. He also had a history of scoring long shots, and he takes enough for us, but he's not been particularly
He
effective at
hasn't
it.
scored a Premier League goal for you
No, and when he does a backflip, and knowing us, that's probably when he'll get injured.
yet. Well, this is the other thing with Adam Wharton, unfortunately. Just over 1,300 minutes last season. He has had ongoing issues. The groin problem is sorted now, is it? I kept
Yeah,
screaming last year, please just get him the operation.
yeah, but we couldn't. We had to get in the operation, but then Doucouré got injured, so we had to wait for him to get back, and then he got injured again. So we didn't actually have any central midfielders, and yeah, we're playing him injured. He needed that. Probably shouldn't have gone to the Euros, James, considering he didn't play a minute. He probably shouldn't have gone to the Euros with, and then he turned down going to the under 21 Euros.
Well, many of us wanted him on the pitch, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I did too, but we'll see. Now we've got this character in charge. This He'll be behind Jordan Henderson in the pecking order, won't he? So.
Oh, Adam Wharton will find his way through. I've no doubt about that. He's a top player. Hopefully, he can sustain fitness. I think the problem with him would be because you do have a concern about his niggles. Also, you look at it and go, right, he hasn't scored a Premier League goal yet. You could look at he's actually getting assists basically every 500 minutes, which if you're saying he's going to take some corners and stuff, that's potentially obviously going to go up. That appeals. But whoever you pick in that sort of space as like an eighth attacker, if you will, you don't really want to piss about with it unless you think you're going to wild card early, and it might be something that forces a transfer. That would be the concern, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's only 5 mil. I was looking at him more in terms of perhaps with the bench boost kind of thing in mind.
Yeah.
People comparing him to 4.5 mils, and imagine he'll be in that bracket for 4.5 and 5 millions. He'll probably score quite highly, I think.
Okay. Let's wrap up with the rest of the central midfielders. So Kamada may be part of the starting lineup at the moment. He's the same price. I get too risky, is it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's him or Hughes. That's the thing. So in the Mainz game, it was Hughes and Wharton, and then in the Augsburg game, it was Kamado and Wharton. So I don't really know. I prefer having a right foot and a left foot partnership in there, but Kamado's the one who's most likely to drop out. We've obviously got Sarr will go to AFCON, potential for the other attacking midfielder we might buy to go to AFCON as well, and then Kamado might go into the 10, and then he'll be more appealing. So that's something to monitor later on because he might end up playing a little bit further. It's not really OOP, but it's like moving into. So we look at our two types of central midfielder as one of them is a 6/8, the other one's an 8/10. So he's basically moving forward a level and will probably be involved more. But he scored against Villa away in the League Cup, but I can't really think of him doing too much more in the final third, really, in terms of goals and assists. He's more of a very kind of selfless player and will get the secondary assists and do very intelligent pressing things, but maybe things you don't get points for.
When do we expect the Corey back?
I have no idea. I haven't seen him in pre-season. I think he'll probably be back. If I were to guess, it would be after the first international break. Same with Charlie Riyad. He'll probably won't be back till the new year.
And it's going to take a while to build up. Chelly Riyad's in at 4. He's obviously going to be out for quite a while. If one of the back three got injured, who would start in the back three at Chelsea?
Lerma.
Okay, so shifting back rather than say put Klein in the team.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think if we sign a central midfielder, that's really a sign that they think of Lerma as a centre back, really. I mean, he's the one who came on in the FA Cup
Yeah.
final when Guehi got his head injury. So yeah, and he was very good for us at the end of the previous season when we had that good run. I think it was even Lerma, Anderson, Klein was our back three when we had a very good run at the end of the previous season, which looking back on that's a bit funny. We've still got Klein as well. It's crazy. But so Lerma would be the fourth choice centre back, I guess. But we'll sign one as well, is the other thing.
Yeah, okay, understood. Quick roundup on a few names. Romain Esse.
He will get minutes now, possibly more last 15 minutes of games if we're resting one of Sarr or Eze. I think he'll play in the Cups and the Conference League. A bit lightweight. He's got bags of talent about him, and the manager was berating him on the pitch after the Liverpool game at the end of last season because he wasn't taking it too seriously. So I don't think he's going to necessarily push for the starting place too much. Don't ask me about França. He's a broken man.
Not winning that Ballon d'Or
No.
bonus in his contract anytime soon.
No.
Um, Lots of struggles looking for 4.5 million midfielders. Is Justin Devaney as good as any option looking around?
I mean, who are the other options?
Well, there aren't. It's find someone who's definitive starter is really tough at the moment, and he doesn't fall into that. But obviously, he's a young player with potential, right?
Yeah, he again similar to Romain Esse, but I think Esse will probably limit his involvement a little bit. He has been used deeper and further forward, so he's got that. He'll probably get more minutes than Romain Esse, I think, because he covers more positions. But I think he will be again League Cup, Conference League player probably.
Okay. If something did happen to Mateta, would you be interested in catcher for fantasy?
Yes, probably. Uh, yeah, because he will get those minutes, but there's also a possibility we play Sarr through the middle as well.
And bring in, well, it could be push Kamada higher. We obviously
Yep.
seen Devaney has played in that more advanced role as well.
We'll sign another attacking midfield slash striker, so that depends who
I
that is.
I suspect you're going to be busy towards the end of this window, mate. I wish you the very best of luck with that appeal. As I said, I don't think you'll get it overturned, but I hope that you do, mate, because I think football-wise, you deserve the Europa League. But that Conference League is so winnable, mate. And suddenly, all these years you waited for a trophy, there could quickly be a second, mate.
London buses.
Good luck for the season, my friend. Anything else you want to plug before we finish?
No, not really. Just get on the Patreon. We've obviously got the Slack there.
I'm not plugging it this week. I'll let you guys do that. Thank you very much, buddy. Right, next on Correspondent Week, four more pods for you again tomorrow. We've got Fulham with Lewis James, Bournemouth with Neil Grover, Brentford with Tom Med, but we'll start tomorrow morning with Leeds United. Dirty Leeds with Ed Salinger. Rory, good luck for the season. Cue music, please, Matt Child.